Yes, yeah, what kind of time Thursday? Thursday.
I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order of February 3rd, 2025, by standing and giving the pledge of invocation. Please stand with me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. February 3rd. Please bow your heads. Lord Heavenly Father, thank you for the string of beautiful days that you've given us here lately. And Lord, please help this council gain the wisdom, your wisdom, to help us guide this beautiful city into the future. In your name I pray. Amen. Ms. Sykes, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Jernigan?
Present.
Councilmember Harris?
Present.
Councilmember Here. Councilmember Carter?
Present.
Mayor Walker?
Present.
City Manager Rosenthal?
Here.
City Attorney Martin?
Here.
Chief Butler?
Here.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the Lake City Council has opened its public meeting since 1968. The city code has prohibited any person from making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks or becoming boisterous while addressing the city council. Yelling or making audible comments from the audience constitutes boisterous conduct. Such conduct will not be tolerated. There is only one approved manner of addressing the city council, and that is to be recognized and speak at the podium. As a reminder, persons are not to openly carry a handgun or carry a concealed weapon or firearm while the governing body is meeting. Failure to abide by the rules of decorum will result in the removal from the meeting. And just to reiterate, please only address me from the podium. I'd ask you to maintain dignity, civility, and self-respect. Speak only on topics at hand and keep it within 3 minutes. Disruptive behavior is using a less than or more than necessary indoor voice, okay? Just wanted to define those things based on some emails that we've gotten here recently. So we'll go ahead and move on to our proclamation. I have 2 people that want to speak on this.
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry, approval of the agenda first.
So approved, Mayor.
We have a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to request that item 8 of the consent agenda be removed.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor first, though, so we'll do that in unless you'd like to amend your motion, Mr. Jernigan.
Yes, let's amend that and, grant, Councilmember Carter's request.
Okay. With that amendment of pulling item number 8 out of the consent agenda, we have a motion on the floor.
Second.
And a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? All right. So we will move forward with the agenda as is with number 8 pulled out of the consent. Okay, proclamations. We do have 2 people that wanted to speak to the proclamation. Do you guys want to do that before or after the proclamation?
After.
Okay. Mr. Warren, you're the other one?
Yeah.
After or before?
After.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Today we have a proclamation, Black History Month, February 2025. Whereas this month we celebrate our American history and contributions of African heritage. And whereas we recognize the heritage and achievements of African culture. The contributions African culture has made and continues to make is an integral part of our society, and the history of Americans of African descent exemplifies the resilience and innovative spirit that continue to make our nation great. And whereas, for generations, Americans of African heritage and African culture has embodied the shared progress of our nation through toil and struggle, and with courageous actions they have broken barriers. They have made America a better place to live and work for everybody. From native African kings and queens to Americans of African descent, such as Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr., and Barack Obama. And whereas we share a rich cultural history which embodies valuable cultural contributions from Africa through its cultural norms and Americans of African descent. The strength and determination of men and women like these remind us that our nation brims with people whose contributions continue to make it stronger and better. And whereas our success historically, presently, and as we embark on our future requires the continued commitment and contributions of our citizens and fellow Americans of African descent. We continue this journey toward a stronger, more united nation. Let us use this commemoration of American history to celebrate the contributions made from African heritage and culture. And whereas, let us also use this month to serve as a reminder of the need for continued meaningful dialogue and shared commitment to collective action that uplifts and empowers, as well as of the strength, ingenuity, and perseverance that is required of us in the years to come, because we have learned from the opportunities of our past and know that we are stronger together. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Noah Walker of the City of Lake City, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2025 as the month to celebrate American history and the era of African heritage in the City of Lake City. And in doing so, urge all citizens to join me in observing this month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. Thank you. In accepting this proclamation today, does Ms. B. Coker to meet me up front?
Yes, sir.
Come on, man. This is a good sign. This is your good sign. Is this your good sign? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of the coalition, thank you, we appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, Ms. B, did you want to speak? Did you want to speak to this?
Yes, sir. My name is Bea Coker. I am the director of our Community Cares Coalition. Would it be possible for me to?
Yes. You'll hand it to Mr. Martin, he'll pass with the panel one.
So the letter that's being distributed is a letter requesting funding support. Prior to COVID, the organization provided a month-long celebration of American history and its contribution from Africa residents, persons of African lineage. And so COVID interfered with it, and we're back. COVID is controllable, manageable, and so we have a similar lineup to what we have traditionally provided in Lake City. So, thank you very much, Mayor Walker and Council members Jernigan and Harris for coming out to the opening ceremony that was held at the Lake City Columbia County Museum, where we opened up with just a general reminder and a walking tour through the museum of the reason for the celebration. A lot of people forget that Carter G. Woodson, in his wisdom, saw an opportunity to remind America of the diverse contributors to our history. So we started the tour with an introduction of the depiction of Carter G. Woodson, inviting patrons to come in and just take a walking tour of history. So we had depictions of an African queen, we had Ruby Bridges, JFK, Martin Luther King Jr., Frederick McKinley Jones, Dr. Daniel Hale, and I think there were a total of 14 depictions, all the way to Maya Angelou. And it was a very meaningful experience. The patrons were diverse. We learned a lot of things we didn't know. We were able to hear a more holistic details about some of the characters. The children enjoy it. So other things we have scheduled for the remainder of the month. We have a trip to Fort Mose. Fort Mose is the first free Black settlement in the United States. And once a year, as a state park, they have a reenactment in St. Augustine, which is where it is. It's called Flight to Freedom. So the school district is providing us with a school bus, and so hopefully we're gonna be able to take about 30 to 40 residents there. So that letter is a funding request asking, as you have done prior to COVID, for your financial support in some capacity.
Thank you, Ms. Coker.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mayor, for recognizing me, Sylvester Warren. The first thing I want to say is that I appreciate, I guess it was you and probably those on the diocese that was willing to go against the current administration and recognize Black History Month. So I find that very courageous of this council. But in saying that, Mr. Noah Walker, Mayor Walker, is that I'm a Black American, right? I'm not just a Black American on February. I'm Black 365 days of the year. And so even though some people get all excited about February, right? Most people get excited by it because of Cupid, Valentine's Day. Some people get excited because we're gonna have a Lusty Festival. I'm less concerned about many of those people you named, because you left out Fred Hampton, you left out people like Malcolm X. But I'm more concerned about what are we doing, meaning as this council with an $80 million budget, to bridge some of the gaps that existed from the past as you talk about Black history and you talk about Black people, right? What about the wealth gap? What are we doing as a council to make sure that we close that wealth gap? What are we doing that we close that gap between school to pipeline to prison? What are we doing to close that gap that all statistics and studies says that if we do something about recreation, we will not have a violent youth crime rate? What are we doing about access to capital for Black individuals and Black entrepreneurs? So when you start talking about Black History Month, and if it's just in word only, it doesn't move my heart. When I start seeing action, just like our Heavenly Father talks about, he talks about a doer, and not just being a hero of the word, but a doer of the word. We gotta stop talking, and we gotta start doing. If people really care about Black Americans, then it would be more than just words. When I begin to see the deeds, then I would be able to say that that tree bear the fruit that it says it is. So if it's an apple tree, I want to see apples growing. And if this tree says that it cares about Black people, I want to see some Black productivity taking place in some of those categories that I named. And Mayor, I think that between you and this council, some of those things are not hard to get done. There's money all through the budget to get it started tomorrow. You got about $2 million over there in the ARPA funds that I handed the city over $6.1 million. It's money over there to help bridge that gap, affordable houses. There's a lot of stuff. Recreation, $0 in your budget for recreation? Oh my God. We care about our kids? Hardly not. That's just my piece. Thank you.
Ms. Warren. All right. So we'll move on to public participation, and we will start with Mr. Harry Joyner.
I don't really have anything important to add. I'm working right now as a volunteer with Be Faithful's group and that kind of thing, and I just want to add a few words to support that. I had a pastor recently talk about an orchestra. An orchestra is filled with different instruments and they're all playing different notes. But when it's in harmony, it is a beautiful thing. And when it's in warm-up before the orchestra plays, it's horrible. And so the goal is always to learn to develop that friendship, that camaraderie that make us an orchestra, and to build that awareness. we have an awful lot of sadness involved in mythology and misinformation. But friendship requires us to know each other well enough that we can do like my students often did to me when I was a teacher. I came in with my best hope to be a good teacher and all the garbage that is part of my crazy self. And they would sit in the classroom and watch me long enough to decide, well, he's one of my people. Well, when they made that decision, suddenly all of my baggage became unimportant because now we were in a working, connected, harmonious relationship. The Our Cares Coalition is working toward that goal. They are trying to share information, share engagement, share activities, share those things that would help us to build the friendship that our community needs to grow towards a harmonious orchestra. And so I support those efforts. So I get volunteered because B knows that I don't say no all the time when I should probably, because I think that it's critically important for us to build and establish a deep foundational friendship. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, up next is Mr. Joseph Simmons. Mr. Simmons? No? Okay, thank you. Ms. Cook? Do you want to speak again? If you'd like, you've got public comment. I had you signed up.
So I'm gonna yield my time if that's okay
Yeah, that's
to
fine.
Victoria.
My name is Victoria Coker. I just want to say thank you for all who came out to the event, and also this program that we are doing is very, very impactful on the youth. I'm a prime example. I love doing things like this, and I know that by helping get that involvement out to other youth members, they will also enjoy it. It'll spread information, and like Mr. Joyner said, it'll build that friendship and it'll help this community in the way that it needs to be helped. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Mr. Warren?
Thank you again for recognizing me, Mr. Mayor. I want to start, if you will. Let's talk about the embarrassing look of the meeting chamber. And I noticed that you're not afraid of anybody, because I saw you move that thing back and let B and her family in, so I know you're not afraid of people. But however, who is terrified up here? I think me and you worked on putting dumps out in the community. We did some community stuff together. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Noah. I've worked well with you when you were on the planning and zoning, and I've helped some of y'all get elected, and I'm related to others. And I just want to know who's afraid of me, and if you are, like, how is this gonna keep you safe? Like, Lisa, you mind? I'm just wondering, like, I saw you, and you're not that. They're so light. It's so light. It's almost like you can just move these. You get what I'm saying? Like, this can't even give you a workout. So, I mean, if there were steel tables, you know what I mean, I would probably understand. But let me say this, is that the person that seems to be afraid and responsible for this, are we aware that this individual was a 40-year retired correction officer, where he was with serial killers with no guns as a correction officer? He retired as a captain. He was also in the military. And you mean to tell me that he's afraid of people coming up here at the podium and speaking their constitutional right, and he doesn't want to be 6 feet next to people, but he's got a lawyer 6 feet next to him, another council person 6 feet next to him? And so I would ask that there would be intelligent people now on this diocese that will have the guts and the courage to say, you know what, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. When you go to the planning and zoning planning and zoning, they don't got this. This is ridiculous. You got a metal detector, you got police officers with guns and everything. This is ridiculous. Why? What would be the significance of this? Other than to try to make one person happy, to appease someone, to try to like antagonize me or what. But look what you're doing to hundreds of other people, right? You're making them feel unwanted and disrespected and not being able to come and break bread and speak and be in close proximity with the people that y'all asked to vote for you all. You don't find that like a little fake and phony? Like they'll be like, hey, please vote for me, holler my name out and tell your people to vote for me, but when you come to the council meeting, you can't go no further than this right here. Do something today, Mayor, please. It's a laughing stock. And I could make it worse by going on social media, but I hadn't done that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. All right, Mr. Bowden.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Brunel Bowden, 1156 Northeast Bascom Norris Drive. Approximately a year ago, matter of fact, 2 days, on February the 5th of last year, the first week of Black History Month, at that particular city council meeting, the former mayor read this statement. I'm not gonna read the entire statement because you all is aware of it, but it was disingenuous then, it was misleading then, and it was full of lies then. The mayor said this, he said, tonight you may notice that the room has been arranged differently. This new layout is for the convenience of those who are addressing the city council, to accommodate those who may not be able to stand at the podium to address the council, and may find it easier to sit when speaking to the council and to maintain appropriate personal space between those speaking to the council and those seated at the dais. And I go down a little bit further, he said, and finally, the tables help maintain the appropriate distance between those addressing the council and those at the dais. If a speaker is too close to the council, not everyone on the dais can see the speaker or the exhibits that they may have to show. The tables are intended to create a comfortable space between those addressing the council and those at the dais to enhance communication during the public comments. Everyone is asked to observe the limitation created by the placement of the tables to the left and to the right of the speaker's left. Those not observing those limitations and stepping into the prohibited area will be given a verbal reminder to adhere to the instructions provided on the table signage. Thereafter, a person who continue to enter the prohibited spaces and beyond the limitation created by the tables may be escorted from the room by law enforcement for repeated entrance into the prohibited spaces. I brought that up, Mr. Mayor, for the same reason that Mr. Warner's investigation. Of course, this don't harm anybody, but we know the reason for it. There's no reason for this. It's designed, I call this the Sylvester Warren table, this the Brunel Bowden table right here. And I mentioned it on Facebook that it was racially motivated. Not racist, but racially motivated. Because I remember at city council meeting when people came around and raised all kind of hell. Didn't look like me. But there was no tables put up. During the period when these tables went up, people come around protesting, as Mr. Jernigan said, complaining. And as a result of that, you get these barriers up that prevent people coming. At the last city council meeting I attended, Ms. Sykes and Mrs. Harris were having a conversation, and my name came up. She had to walk from up here around this table to come out here to speak to me. Prior to that, over the past years, at the old city council in here, I could walk up here during the break, before the break. It's, how you doing, Ms. Harris? How you doing, Ms. Young? But now you got this here. And the reason it's here is for one reason. It's to intimidate and to try to silence the public. And I said it before, and I'm gonna say it again, and I keep saying it. This is unnecessary. The school board don't have it, the county commission don't have it, don't have it in Live Oak, don't have it in White Springs, don't have it anywhere but here in Lake City, and it's wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden. All right. Moving on to approval of the consent agenda without number 8 involved.
So, Mr. Mayor, you look at my request.
Yes, sir. What we haven't done in the past is we haven't spoken to individual consent item agendas except for during consent agenda items, except for during public speaking or public comment.
Well,
I'll give you, if you'd like to speak, I'll give you 1 minute. You think that's?
no, what I want to do, I want to speak to the item in the consent agenda for the same reason that Mr. Carter wanted to be removed as a citizen. There's issues in the consent agenda. The issues that let me get my notes real quick.
You're looking at, you put down 5, 6, 7, and 8,
Right.
which,
And on 5, 6, and 7, 8, in the package, there's a statement of the problem that justifies the grant. And in those statements of problem, it outlines some issues where the city of Lake City ranks high in terms of accidents and all of that.
we'll start, do you wanna pause that real quick? Sorry for breaking. Well, okay, well, if you could, so we're gonna speak to the consent agenda as one term. So to speak to what's currently still on the consent agenda is 5, 6, and 7, what you have, okay? And then we'll have number 8 broken out. So if you can speak to those 3 items and
Well, let me be clear. I don't want to speak to the items during comments. My public comments are my public comments.
Sure.
And that has totally different than what's in this agenda package. In the agenda package is issues that the public deserve to have some conversation about.
let me, go ahead, Glenn, sorry. This is good legal guidance for me.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following the state statute that grants to the public the opportunity to make reasonable comment about matters before the council, the consent agenda as a whole would count or
As an
be
item.
considered as one whole item, and so it would be appropriate to give any member of the public that wants to speak to the consent agenda as a whole 3 minutes to speak, just as they would any other single agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I apologize, Mr. Bowden, we'll start your timer over.
Okay. Well, on the consent agenda, Mr. Mayor,
So what you currently still have on there is the step, the 5, 6, and 7.
well, my concern with each one of them, 5, 6, and 7 is the same thing. In the agenda package, if y'all had time to read it, and I'm not sure you did since the agenda came out on Friday, and it was so large that the city clerk had to include it was Dropbox. So I'm almost convinced that nobody on the city council read the entire agenda package. But in those issues, the resolutions, it talks about a statement of problem. And I believe as a citizen that if there's a resolution being proposed before the public, and there's a statement of a problem that says that we're applying for this $15,000 grant. And the reason that we're applying for it is because they say they're ranked so high in terms of accidents, in terms of speeding, in terms of all that. So unless the police chief and the city manager, which both of them I think is intellectually prepared to discuss the statement of problem that's listed in both of those resolutions, all 3 of those resolutions have a statement of the problem. And if this council is saying that the only way that the public gonna be able to understand that, we gotta read it and understand it ourselves, when at this meeting, it's in the agenda package, so it seems to me it's only fair to the public that the chief of police or the city manager should be able to articulate what that statement of problem means to me as a citizen of the city of Lake City. I support the idea of applying for the grant, but if you're gonna use the consent agenda to suppress public participation, because that's what it's actually doing. But the public wants to speak to an issue that's in the consent agenda, because you consent that, well, we consent to this because the city manager got it in the agenda package and the city attorney signed off on it. But what about the public? We have a right to some understanding, and it just seems to me that it should come off, you know, and that I can have an opportunity to go through it in detail and say, right here on this, it should be up on the screen. This is what it says. What does that mean, Mr. Police Chief? What does that mean, Assistant Police Chief? What does that mean that the city of Lake City is ranked #1 when it comes to speeding and aggressive driving? That's in the agenda package. And was that the case last year when you applied for the grant? If that was the case last year when you applied for the grant, then we have it in improvement. So, Mayor, don't use the consent agenda to suppress public participation. If you want to be open and honest and transparent, this is the time to do it. It don't cost, it's not going to extend this meeting no more than 10 or 15 minutes. You know, you take 10 or 15 minutes to take P-Verse, you can take 10 or 15 minutes for us to have some input at the city council meeting. you know, and if I can't do it, perhaps my city councilwoman would ask that it be removed from the consent agenda so that we can have some public participation. But, right now, what I see you doing is trying to suppress public participation, and it's wrong. And if a citizen asks you to take something off the consent agenda, it seems to me that you ought to be willing to do it.
Thank you, Mr. President. All right. So to speak to the consent agenda, we still have items 2 through 7 on the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
So approved, Mayor.
A motion?
Are we not gonna entertain discussions?
So I have we can entertain discussion. We have a motion on the floor right now. So a second would move us to discussion unless
Second move to discussion.
We have a second, now I'll have discussion. What would you? Does anybody have any discussion?
Well, if I may, Mayor, I'd like to point out that these are all grants that was gotten by the police department. Some of them was for, to help combat excessive driving, help combat various things. And the police, if you need more, the police chief can speak more on it. I don't see the sense in taking something like this off the consent agenda. This is acceptance of grants.
And for sake of discussion, when I was going through the agenda fully, I called the chief and had him walk me through these. These are grants that we've applied for and had on a continuing basis the last few years. And so just like the item number, the 4, where you have the mutual aid agreement, it's consistent with what he does and what he has been doing the last few years. So I didn't see the need to move it from the consent agenda. However, this is open discussion. Does anybody else on the council have anything they'd like to say?
Yeah, Mayor, if I could, I totally agree with what's his name, Mr. Bowden. I totally agree with him, and when I talked to the city manager in the meeting that I have, I went through this agenda as well, and I asked a question about the different grants, and he explained all this stuff to me. However, explaining it to me, I understood it, but when it comes to the citizens of this community, it's kind of difficult sometimes for them to actually understand exactly what these grants or what these procedures are. So I definitely, and I had intentions, I think I wrote it down somewhere, I might have left it home, I had intentions whenever we read these resolutions, I wanted the chief to come up and explain exactly what that that agreement was and what kind of arrangements do we have to accept these different aids that come in. So I was gonna have him come up and explain it, if I could, that was gonna be one of my requests.
Mr. Burke?
If I may, if there's desire on the council to have these things talked about, I mean, the motion was to approve the agenda. I think we would probably want to rescind that and decide if we want to take them off.
Yeah.
At this
So
point,
we have a motion and a second to approve. We'll go ahead and vote if there's no further discussion. That way we can shoot it down and then we can pull it off if you'd like, okay? Ms. Hutchinson, please call the roll.
If we put it on, we're gonna put it on the agenda.
Yeah, it'll just slide right after. Yes, ma'am. Did you have a question?
No, I was gonna.
Okay. I thought, I'm sorry.
Okay, so do we have anything further than discussion? Do we have the numbers? Do we have improvement numbers available tonight?
Essentially, we have the fact that these are grants that the chief has went out and got to combat speeding, combat various things in the city. We're fortunate that we got the grants, and that's all we're saying. We accepted the grants that we received for various speeding and traffic-related issues.
I think the issue is not about the grants, the issue is about, making it whereas, constituents and everybody to find out exactly what this money is for, would it be sent that,
Sure. So we, go, yes, ma'am.
If the grants are already, so everything is pretty much done, we're just saying yes to the grants. So I really don't think there's no, anything further than discussion necessary.
think it needs to be a discussion. I mean,
That's what we're
clearly,
doing.
that is just one person speaking, saying, he would like to know more about it, but I'm sure he's probably speaking for several other people. We can move forward on it as we are, but I think that what harm would it do for it to be wrote down so not only him, but others can know exactly what this is?
But what I'm saying is, we're not prepared to do anything beyond discussions.
Chief, do you want to speak to that? I know that we have a motion and a second on the floor. Let's shoot down the motion to approve the consent agenda first. All right, Ms. Sykes, please call the roll.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Everybody understand that
Yeah,
we're voting to
we're
approve
voting.
the consent agenda as presented?
You're currently voting to approve it.
Okay,
Oh, okay. Yeah, so
alright.
Okay.
with that understanding, could you please recall the roll?
Yes, I was thinking they may be, sorry, Mr. Jernigan?
No.
Okay, Ms. Young?
No.
Okay, Mr. Carter?
No.
Ms. Harris?
No.
And Mayor Walker? Okay, motion failed.
Now, somebody should make a motion to take items 5, 6, and 7 off of the consent agenda prior to approval.
I'd like to make a motion to take this off 5, 6, and 7 and put it on the regular agenda for discussion.
So we have a motion to remove 5, 6, and 7 and put it on the regular agenda.
I still don't. My question remains, are we gonna get any farther? Are we gonna move any farther than discussion if we're not prepared to go outside of discussion with this?
Chief presented me with what it is that we're voting on via phone whenever I called him on it, so I imagine he's probably as prepared now to speak to it.
Well, if he's prepared, yes, but if he's not prepared, then we're just spinning wheels.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Sykes, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yay.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mayor Walker?
Yes. Alright. Now, before we move to those items, the rest of the consent agenda items, which are 2, 3, and 4, that's 5 through 8 have been taken off the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve those items.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Sykes, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Carter?
Yay.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Ms. Young? Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Walker?
Yes. Alright, now we will move in sequence into those items and start with number 5. Chief, if you just give us an overview, if you'd like to bundle your information together on all 3 of them.
Yeah, so these are the state STEP DOT grants. We apply for them every year. Some years we get 2, 3, some years we don't get any, but this year we were fortunate enough to receive all 3. Each one of the grants is $15,000. It is to reimburse us for overtime for those specific items. The impaired driving, that is used for obviously impaired driving. Part of it is we have to agree to have a DUI checkpoint as part of it. The occupant protection is seatbelt. Part of that also is we have to have officers go into certain areas with counters, count how many vehicles go by, how many are in compliance with the seatbelt. We put those stats together and that's part of the report that qualifies us. And the last one is the speed and aggressive driving, where we bring officers out for the speeding enforcement, different areas of the city. A lot of times the council will call, people are calling about certain areas, 90, Long Street, Baya, speeding vehicles. And this is strictly overtime reimbursement to the city for those amounts.
For responding and setting up at those areas.
Correct.
Very good. Correct. All right, I'll now open up public comment on item number 5, which we have Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mayor, for recognizing me. I understand what the chief is saying, right? But I'm a firm believer, if you're an entrepreneur and maybe other people have some type of entrepreneur background, right? And so I understand the need for the grants. I understand asking for grants. But I also look at whether or not taking this money is a benefit to the community, or could it potentially be a harm to the community? And let me explain this. I don't know where the data is coming from. Where's the CAD report? When you start, let's back up. Where's the transparency, right? Some things should have taken place before these grants got accepted by the police chief. A presentation should have been done. I want to know what areas are being targeted with this money. It's number one, right? What does the CAD report say? Where's the aggressive driving going? And could these grants potentially be forcing police officers, right, to do pretext traffic stops, where most people get pulled for a seatbelt or claiming they're getting pulled for a light, and then the officer all of a sudden forget about, hey sir, you need to get your tail light fixed. Next thing you know, here comes the K9 dog. He held you long enough for him. Next thing you know, hey, you mind if I search your car? I'm not going past these subparts. And I'm just talking. So, does that make sense? In my skin, right, in my neck of the woods, where I live at, that's the feel that we have when it comes to these type of grants and these type of programs, right? Are they going to equally be set up in different areas? Or is it going to be half going to go to District 10, 12, 13? Like, are we going to do it equal? Or that pool of money is going to be spent overtime right over in the hood like it typically is? And then y'all do that one DUI stop right out there in front of the highway patrol station. Am I making sense, ma'am? Like, we want to know. And the only thing that can prove that is that the mayor do a presentation and show us the CAD report. Where's the aggressive driving at? Because most of the aggressive driving that I see, right, is out on 90 where they out there drag racing at. As soon as you get in between Discount Tire and Publix, where the loud trucks, and they get the stumping on them, and they get the doing all this stuff. I mean, it's just as bad in a predominantly white area as in the black, but you don't get those stops out there. You don't get that harassment out there, right? And so if you apply for this and y'all okay it, fine by me. All I want to know is from the chief, where is he grabbing his statistics from? Where is those numbers coming from? Are you fudging what you're telling the state to get this money? Or are you getting this money off the back of one particular group of community? Thanks for one.
Mr. Bow, yeah, yes, Ms. Harris.
I'd like to make a comment to that. Mr. Warren, I happen to be, and I'm just speaking for 12 because I live in 12. In the neighborhood that I'm living in, there has been a lot of what they call scat packing or whatever, where they're swirling in the middle of the road. I can't speak for what, I have seen stuff going on at 90, but in District 12, I can speak on District 12. We do need somebody there. And a child just got killed by somebody flying or whatever they were doing, the same thing. I would not want that to happen in my district. So I would be one of those persons, I have been that person to call Chief Butler and ask him for more visibility of the police officer. Now, I'm speaking for 12. I can't speak for 13, 14, or 10, just 12. I want their presence there.
Ma'am, I was spoken to, ma'am, may I read?
It's not a debate.
We've
got more public comment coming up, and then we have 2 extra items.
Ma'am, I'm not debating, I'm chief calling my name, I just wanted to respond.
No, sir. Up next is Mr. Bowden, okay? Mr. Bowden.
It's not fair.
You're coming up on the next item.
But I only can address what.
No, it's not a debate, it's not a back and forth.
Somebody, my glasses broke, my hearing going bad, I'll tell you. The reason I was raising Mr. Mayor, as I said, I read through the agenda package and the statement of the problem. I think the public should be told that according to the Florida Department of Transportation, the fiscal year of 2025, the safety metric, the city of Lake City ranked first in the occupant protection-related serious injuries and fatalities of the 118 cities with population between 3,000 and 14,000. And that's why I raised the issue. I think that those kind of points should be articulated to the public. I did not know that we ranked first in the city of Lake City. And I agree that the chief should be applying for that. But those are the kind of things I think that people should be told. Do you realize that the city of Lake City is ranked first when it comes to this? I ride Lake City all the time. I see people riding around with their children without a seatbelt on. I'm a stickler about seatbelts. I get on my daughter and my grandkids all the time about it. I take my little kid to the park, out to Wilson Park, Miller Park. The first thing I do is strap him in the back seat in the seatbelt. First thing I do. If he don't want to be in the seatbelt, he don't ride. That's just like that. So the point I'm making, Mr. Mayor, is that in the consent agenda, if the public raise the issue, say, I want to talk to something in this agenda. I understand that the city manager believes that it don't make any sense. We apply for it every year, we get it, we don't get it. But if the public got an issue in the consent agenda they want to speak to, or she want to speak to, I think it only makes sense that you do it. I'm not asking to speak to every item on the agenda, but if our citizen corpus, I want to speak to this particular item, because I took the time to read it and didn't understand it. And because you consent to it, or he consent to it, that's you all. But as the public, I should be able to do it. And if you're not gonna do it, I'm gonna ask my councilwoman from time to time to remove something from the consent agenda so I can speak to it. Because Mr. Carter can be removed from the consent agenda because he found something he wants to speak to. Then I, as a citizen, should be able to do the same thing. And that's my point. If the chief did not speak to that part of it, the part of the statement, you know, so that should be spoken to.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. All right. So I'm gonna close the public comment now. Any comments from the council? All right, I will entertain a motion to, yes, sorry. Yes, Mr. Martin, could you read the resolution by title, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council members, you have before you resolution number 2025-020. Resolution of the City of Lake City, Florida, accepting grant funds awarded by the State of Florida Department of Transportation State Safety Office to the City of Lake City Police Department, providing additional funding for the Strategic Traffic Enforcement Program to cover costs associated with enforcing impaired driving laws, adopting the grant award agreement as a condition of accepting such grant funds, making certain findings of fact in support of the city, accepting such funds, and adopting said grant award agreement, recognizing the authority of the mayor to execute and bind the city to said agreement, directing the mayor to execute and bind the city to said agreement, repealing all prior resolutions in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I'll now entertain a motion to, do you have a comment? Go for it.
I just wanna ask, Mr. Biden, did that suffice you? The conversation the things that you just said?
Yes, yes. On that particular, on Title V, yes.
I will.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution 2025-020. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve number 2025-020. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Sykes, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Carter?
Yay.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Ms. Young? Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Walker?
Yes. All right, thank you. Now we're moving on to City Council Resolution number 2025-021. Mr. Martin, will you read that one by title before public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council members, you have before you resolution number 2025-021, a resolution of the City of Lake City, Florida, accepting grant funds awarded by the State of Florida Department of Transportation State Safety Office to the City of Lake City Police Department, providing additional funding for the Strategic Traffic Enforcement Program to cover costs associated with enforcing occupant protection laws, adopting the grant award agreement as a condition of accepting such grant funds, making certain findings of fact in support of the city accepting such grant funds, and adopting said grant award agreement, recognizing the authority of the mayor to execute and bind the city to said agreement, directing the mayor to execute and bind the city to said agreement, repealing all prior resolutions in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I'll open public comment. Mr. Warren?
Thank you, Mayor, for recognizing me. I don't do back and forth. I don't find none of y'all to be that important to go back and forth with, but I was wanting to respond because someone made a comment using my name. So keep that in mind. So I don't want to be misrepresented. I was strictly 100% in favor of the grant. I was saying how grants, sometimes all money and good money depend on how it's allocated and where it's being used at. As far as the hood, I was the #1 person that came up here and fought for gunshot detectors, license plate readers, bringing in the ATF. I was the #1 person that told y'all how to even combat crime, being that I have a formal background in being a criminal. But, and as to, where's the Mariah sign, right? Everybody's so concerned about everything. That's been on hold for a year. Where's Salome Jerry Park so kids can play? That ain't been open for 2 years. Where's Clay Martin return on where we at on the eminent domain? And another thing, Mel, if Miss Harris is so concerned, and everybody's so concerned about speed bumps, then won't y'all go ahead and make a motion to have Mr. Clay Martin readdress the ordinance so y'all can put speed bumps in here? That's all you got to do. Am I lying, Clay? That's all you got to do. That is it. It is in the ordinance as to why y'all can't have speed bumps. All you have to do is readdress the ordinance. Amend the ordinance. Y'all can have speed bumps. All I'm doing is pointing out the facts. A lot of people do a lot of this, don't have a lot of this, and then when somebody try to bring you a lot of this, you want to try to act like they got a problem. All I'm trying to do is bring solutions. I'm solution-oriented. I don't get up there just to speak. I speak the facts. I speak what I know that I'm talking about. I speak what I study and have proven. So, that being said, Mel, until we start seeing some action, some real action, why Kids Park is not open because of eminent domain, but y'all over there cutting the grass. So if it ain't ours, why y'all cutting the grass? That's against the law, and it's unethical. That's one. Two, y'all promised this lady a sign and her daughter and her granddaughter a year ago. Still ain't delivered. Ain't nobody saying nothing about that. I watched a meeting a month ago, man, where y'all did a consent among y'all as to what y'all gonna do about this. Hey, it was 3-2. And you still ain't did nothing. If y'all ain't gonna make motions, why have these meetings? Get a backbone. Stop talking. People are in Lake City, Florida, people are tired of people just talking. If you really wanna sit up there and make a difference, and Mr. Carter, you can agree this because you sat on the planning and zoning. When y'all were there, y'all made motions. That's how things moved along. That's how we got, what's the place over there I Save a Lot? That's how we got Tractor Supply. That's how we got things. Motions. All y'all wanna do is just talk like this. This ain't church. Church was what, yesterday? Y'all should did all that preaching and talking then.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Mr. Bowden.
Since it was not read into the record and nobody said anything about it, I go back to my concern about in the application for the grant, it got the statement of the problem. And this particular one, excuse me, my glasses, I broke my glasses. So according to the Florida Department of Transportation fiscal year wide 2025 highway safety metric, the city of Lake City ranked first. The city of Lake City ranked first for occupant protection related serious injuries and fatalities of the 118 cities with population between 3,000, 14,000, 999. And that's the only thing I was suggesting, Mr. Mayor, that the people should know. I'm not sure that I can't speak for y'all that you all knew that. I didn't know it. I didn't find out when I read the agenda package on Saturday. So I think the public should know that. And they should know whether or not the last year, if the city got that grant, did we have an improvement? Because what this suggests, that we're getting the grants, but we're not seeing an improvement. Our cities are ranked first when it comes to serious occupant injuries. That's important. So I think that it should be some education going toward this. It couldn't be just enforcement. We should take that $15,000 and have some program in the churches and the communities about what we need to do to prevent this. We ranked #1 according to the Florida Department of Transportation. And just applying for the grant and getting the grant and doing, that's one thing. But if we're not solving it with this $15,000 well, for overtime, then perhaps the council need to look at budgeting some money so we can get more people on the streets to deal with it outside of overtime. Because we rank #1. Not #1 for attracting tourists, not #1 for attracting businesses. We rank #1 for serious accidents to occupants, children, and grown folks not wearing the seatbelt. It causes my insurance to go up and your insurance to go up. So that's my point. That in the future, that if there's an issue on the agenda like this and the public wants some explanation, then we should be able to get it. That's my point.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden. All right. Chip, please.
I wanted to ask a question about Sally Jerry Park, that's not open.
I would ask that we maintain the,
Or just on
yeah, maintain the, we can get to that whenever we get to comments at the end, but right now we're on resolution number 2025-021, which we got a little off topic.
If I may ask,
Yes, ma'am.
and that's why I asked, are we prepared? I didn't just ask that for no reason, because I knew we needed, he expected statistics, he expected numbers. And, but he went on Google and got those. Now, the next question is, and I think he was kind of roundabout asking this question, has there been improvement? Were we number one last year, still number one this year, and with the grant, still number one? So that's the question, are we prepared to answer that question? Has there been any improvements? Did the number decrease?
Again, what I understand and what Chief told us was that these are reimbursements. So if folks are calling in because people are speeding, if folks are calling in because, or if we do have that issue of occupant hazard, we're getting reimbursed because our officers have already responded to those issues and it's caused overtime and we're getting reimbursement for those costs.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I may.
Yes.
It seems to me like, there's probably some interesting, questions that could be asked. I don't see any reason why the council can't direct the police chief perhaps to bring us back some information about
Sure.
these things in the future. I went to the Breakfast with the Chief event a week or so ago. Tons of really good information. They're very good at putting the information together and presenting it. So maybe we have, have there been improvements? How is this being used specifically? But I don't see anything wrong with having a presentation with that. Obviously, no one's prepared to do that tonight, but we can certainly direct the police chief to maybe bring us something like that in the future.
Does anybody have anything else before I call for a motion? Yes, sir.
I don't know that question can't be answered. Why can't that question be answered tonight?
Well, Chief, would you like to answer that question tonight? I don't know if you're.
At this point.
Well, so Councilman Carter just suggested that we have him come present at a future meeting, accept these grants tonight, have him present at a future meeting, but if you guys would like to ask him questions, Chief, does anybody have any questions for Chief?
Chief, did you say that, some of the, money was gonna be spent for speed hump?
No, speed humps, no.
Right, so, now, I had, and I called you and I spoke with you because I had some neighbors in District 12, they wanted speed humps. Is that's not your job, is it? That is
No, ma'am.
Steve? Right, okay.
And there's a process, very much like changing the street names, where you have to get so many citizens to sign off on it. Mr. Jernigan.
Yes, before the chief speaks, I'm in agreement with Carter. The last breakfast we had with the chief, he had all kinds of statistics up there. And it was incredible to see that and the chief to present that. I think what we're saying, if you could correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Carter, I think we're saying that in the future, Chief, if you would, just be prepared to have a presentation. That way, the whole city of Lake City and Columbia County will know about the statistics and why we are getting approval for the grants. We can talk about it all day, but the citizens need to know what's going on with the grants and if we had an improvement or have we gotten worse. Maybe we're number 10 now instead of number 1, something to that effect. So in the future, just bring those, just be prepared to answer questions and maybe do a presentation on that. I would like to suggest the same thing Carter did.
I would even suggest that it be first meeting of March. If that's okay with council. Have Chief present this first meeting of March.
Well, I'm not exactly sure what I'd be presenting. The occupancy protection grant, that's seatbelt, almost every department puts in for the ones that do receive something. The stats that we use are basically, again, the officers will use the counters when they go by, so we have a compliance. Also, our vehicle accidents, there's a checkbox for whether the occupants were seatbelted in at the time of the accident. I would like to remind the council that 2 years in a row, the Lake City Police Department received first place awards from the state DOT for our traffic enforcement efforts. This last time, we actually came out first of all the departments that came out first the previous year. And you also have to remember, part of our stats were we're grouped by size of cities, and that was one thing that you read. Lake City, we're unique in the fact of how much traffic volume we have. We have volume where this DOT puts us closer to a city of 65,000. So when they get our numbers for the amount of accidents, the amount of speeding, and the amount of enforcement we do, we're doing it like we're a city of 60,000 where we're only a city of 12,500. So that's one of the reasons our numbers show that we're higher in these categories, because they go by population, not by traffic volume.
Could you reiterate what will this grant money be spent on? And
Which grant, the current one?
This is,
Yeah.
this is number 6, so we're on,
Occupant protection?
yes.
Occupant protection is seatbelt enforcement. So what would happen is, we put out officers in different areas of the city. Now, a couple of times we have to bring them out, and the officer, they don't do the enforcement, they just do the counts. If a vehicle goes by, or with 4 people in it, they'll click on the 4 people, and they also add the amount that are wearing seatbelts. And we'll say, okay, 100 people went by, 80 out of the 100 had their seatbelts on, 20% of the people didn't, and that's what we end up reporting.
Okay, and the question was about where would the police officers be placed in?
Different areas of the city.
And when you say different areas, would it be more so in one place versus scattered everywhere in Lake City and
We move around based on,
so you can assure me at this moment that it won't be just in one neighborhood?
No.
It will be strategically put in different places?
for the traffic, for the seatbelt, we go to high volume areas.
Okay.
It's not gonna be a road where no car goes by because we're not getting any numbers. Most of the time, and I'm saying most of the time, we're either on 90, we're on some of the main roads where we've got some traffic flow going through, so we get a good statistical analysis of what's going on. But, and even with the other grants, we move around the city. There's issues all over the city. We move around. We do not target one specific area unless there's a reason for it. If I get a bunch of impaired driver accidents on 90 on the west side of town, that's where we're gonna end up doing our enforcement. The checkpoint, again, we go to a high volume area where at night, when we do the checkpoint, that they're gonna have vehicles going through where we pass out the educational literature and see if we have any impaired drivers.
Thank you, Chief. Anybody else have any questions for Chief? If not, we can entertain a motion to City Council Resolution number 2025-021.
Mayor, I'd like to move forward on resolution number 2025-021.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing
I'll just say that I thought that sufficed for now. I don't think there's a necessity to bring back a report.
very good, thank you. Ms. Sykes, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yay.
Ms. Young? Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Walker?
Yes. All right. Item number 7, we do have some public comments for this too, but Mr. Martin, will you please read this by title?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. You have before you resolution number 2025-022, a resolution of the City of Lake City, Florida, accepting grant funds awarded by the State of Florida Department of Transportation State Safety Office to the City of Lake City Police Department, providing additional funding for the Strategic Traffic Enforcement Program to cover costs associated with enforcing speed and aggressive driving laws, adopting the grant award agreement as a condition of accepting such grant funds, making certain findings of fact in support of the city accepting such funds and adopting said grant award agreement, recognizing the authority of the mayor to execute and bind the city to said agreement, directing the mayor to execute and bind the city to said agreement, repealing all prior resolutions in conflict and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I'll go ahead and open public comment. We do have 2 people signed up. Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mayor, for recognizing me. This is a grant that I really want to talk about because it deals with speed and aggressive. For the life of me, I try to put myself in other people's shoes and I try to understand what's the thinking behind the diocese, right? And it sometimes disappoints me because I would think that those that are behind the diocese would be meeting with their legal team, meeting with a senior city manager and say, you know what? There's no way in the world we can put enough manpower, right, with law enforcement to really help to curb issues. Law enforcement alone doesn't curb issues, right? That's why people get cameras. That's why you have lighting. It's like a facet or multifaceted of things that go together to help put out that fire or reduce or deter that issue. The problem I have is that none of y'all that I'm aware of have sat with y'all legal team that I know of and say, hey, because everybody I know in the hood, they want speed bumps. Where is the council, especially the predominantly black council? Where are you all at about speaking up and talking to the attorney? And you all know the issues that we got in the hood. But y'all sit up here and play church and kiss and tell and all these little games instead of dealing with the issues. Y'all not dealing with the issues. All y'all do is sit up here and discuss the problems. We already know what the problem is. Y'all are no different than DC. All DC do is spend money, right, on doing more research on what the issues are instead of spending that money and giving it to the people to fix the problem. And y'all are no different when y'all talk about issues and y'all apply no solutions. When y'all pay this guy over almost probably $200,000 and y'all pay this smart guy $175,000 with this new raise. But you mean to tell me, Mr. Mayor, between all of you all, this type of experience, this type of experience, this type of experience with money, this type of experience with him, including his law firm, y'all can't get speed bumps. And y'all want law enforcement to enforce speed when y'all can put in speed bumps to have them somewhere else where more serious stuff is going on at? This is how y'all want to spend taxpayers' dollars? This is how we want to use law enforcement resources? On trying to catch somebody when speed bumps can help resolve that issue? That is ass backwards, man. Ass backwards. So, I got 15 seconds, and I just want to know, who in the hell checks on the officers that speed and run red lights? Because I see them do it all the time. They fly up and down Marion Street. Who police them? Are they going to get some tickets this year?
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Mr. Bowden, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I wanted to, this technology is something else. Raise the same concern I raised before. It's not a concern, but the same point I think that the public should be made aware of in the application for this particular grant. And the statement of the problem, and it's from the Department of Transportation, it said Lake City currently ranked poorly on the Florida Department of Transportation Highway Safety Metric ranking of Florida cities, Group 3, based on fatalities and serious injury crashes for the fiscal year. We score in the top 40% of all categories, and we rank 1, and they got in parentheses, worst in speed and aggressive driving. Those are the kind of things in this particular resolution I think that the chief or the city manager should address in a public setting so that the public would know that our little city ranked as the worst for our size when it comes to speed and aggressive driving. And when you don't allow that to take place, you're dumbing down the process. And I'm not going, as a citizen, I'm not going to allow myself to be dumbed down because you don't want it on the regular agenda because for some reason you don't think it's worth being discussed. But I don't think that the public is aware that the city of Lake City is ranked #1, the worst for our size when it comes to speed and aggressive driving. That should be made a point and it should be highlighted. That's not a criticism of the police department. It's not even a criticism of the city council. I'm saying that if this statistic is correct, then the public should know that. And what a better way to do it than right here? And if I have to stand up into the microphone to let it be known when you should be able to do it from that PowerPoint you got there, then I'll do that. But I shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't have to come up here and point out something that's as glaring as that is. I mean, we just had, like the councilwoman said, we just had a young lady that got killed out there for US 9, raised by a hit and run driver, you know? We know about that because that's publicity. Everybody know about it, they see it. But they don't know about this because they don't take the time to read the agenda packet like I do, or like you do, or like anybody else out there. So I'm just suggesting to you that when this come up again, that you read the agenda package and the issue that points out where the city of Lake City ranks in the negative, then we should talk about it. I guarantee you, if there's something positive about it, the Lake City ranked #1, we'll be talking about, oh man, we're the safest city in the town. But when we're not the safest city in the town, we should let that be known also. That's my point.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden. All right. Clay, I didn't have it, yeah, please.
Mr. Bowden, I will let you all know this. We are, at least I have spoken with the city manager about speed humps in District 12. I can't speak for other districts, but I have spoken to him about that amongst other stuff. So please, Mr. Warren, do not think that everybody is just sitting on our hands. We're actually trying to get some things done, but you were the one that brought it up.
And Mayor, if I may, we've spoken to several council members about speed bumps.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Mr. Martin, would you read number 7 by title, please? Council City Resolution number 2025-022.
Certainly. Step back to it, yeah.
Skip the process again, trying to get into public comments.
Resolution number 2025-022, a resolution of the City of Lake City, Florida, accepting grant funds awarded by the State of Florida Department of Transportation and State Safety Office to the City of Lake City, Florida Police Department, providing additional funding for the Strategic Traffic Enforcement Program to cover costs associated with enforcing speed and aggressive driving laws, adopting the grant award agreement as a condition of accepting such grant funds, making certain findings of fact in support of the city accepting such funds and adopting said grant award agreement, recognizing the authority of the mayor to execute and bind the city to said agreement, directing the mayor to execute and bind the city to said agreement, repealing all prior resolutions in conflict, and providing an effective date.
All right, very good. We've had public comment on this. Do we have any discussion on the dais? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion on City Council Resolution number 2025-022.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move forward with City Resolution number 2025-022.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve number 2025-022. Any further discussion? All right, Ms. Sykes, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yay.
Ms. Young?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Walker?
Yes. For the sake of time, and I know that we need to take a break, we're gonna do a 5-minute recess for Mr. Martin.
We can go ahead and finish up.
You wanna do number 8?
We can do number 8.
Do number 8 first, all right. Moving on to number 8, Mr. Martin, please read that by title.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council members, you have before you resolution number 2025-023, a resolution of the City of Lake City, Florida, approving that certain agreement between the city and Saxon Gilmore for legal services in furtherance of establishing a housing authority in the city, making certain findings of fact in support of the city, approving said agreement, recognizing the authority of the mayor to execute and bind the city to said agreement, directing the mayor to execute and bind the city to said agreement, repealing all prior resolutions in conflict, and providing an effective date.
All right, now I'll open it up for public comment. I'm gonna go in reverse order. Mr. Bowden, I'm gonna let you go first, if you don't mind.
What you want, number 8?
Number 8, yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor and Council, the day I took the opportunity to contact the city clerk, and she always responsive to my call and request for public information. And when I read the agenda packet, I was concerned, and she explained to me why I didn't understand it. I didn't see a RFP request for the high Saxon and Gilmore, and she indicated that it was exempt. It could be exempt. My experience over the years has been when when a city don't go out for RFPs or don't go out for bids when they can, then it kind of limit the opportunity for others to participate and have a bite at the apple. You know, this firm is located in Tampa. I'm sure it's a very quality and can do the job. But there's a possibility that could have been a firm in Gainesville or Jacksonville had an opportunity to request for if that was not the case. I don't know if it was the case or not, so I may be speaking out of school here. The other thing I didn't see, and I saw what the rate of the attorneys are going to be, but I didn't see anything about the cost or whether it was in the budget. Do we have a limit on how much we're going to pay this firm? Is it a top of $25,000 or $10,000 or $15,000? And where that money comes from? Is it a budget item? All of that I think should be a part of. And that's why I don't think it should have been in the consent agenda. And I appreciate the fact that Mr. Carter asked that to come out, because there's some things, some questions that the public should be able to understand and to know. If had he not brought it off the consent agenda, then these questions could even be asked. We wouldn't even know. I don't know what the total cost is going to be as a taxpayer. If we talking about a limit of $25,000, not to exceed 25, not to exceed 15, you know, and why is it that we did not reach out to anybody if that is the case? So my comments, what I would want to know is whether or not there was, in Mr. City Manager research, did he look at any other firm other than this particular firm? And if so, that's fine. But I also think the public need to know what the cost is going to be in the end, not to exceed the amount.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden. Mr. Warren.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for acknowledging me. Mr. Mayor, one of the reasons that I don't like coming to these meetings anymore is because of some of y'all behind ISIS, right? Most people like myself come to give health information and to bring solutions to problems, and by action, not by conversation. And if a person was serious about what they were serious about, correct me if I'm wrong, you would find that issue on the agenda. That's action. You have requested for it to go on the agenda. And then when it's on the agenda, it has an opportunity to be voted up or down. So just because you go talk to a city manager and whatnot, if you ain't got nothing on the agenda, you just running your mouth as you were prior and as you are now. But until it makes it on the agenda, it's free. And so to speak to the issue at hand, I take on the same sentiment as Mr. Bowden. I do believe that in anything, you know, as an entrepreneur, like I at least would want to see 3 bids. That's like anybody does that. Even if you're getting your house painted or you get something done to your house, you want to go out and bid, right? You want to know what something's going to cost because you operate off what is called a house budget. Here you operate on what is called the tax people or the city budget, which belongs to the tax people, right? So they kind of want to know how you're spending their money, who you're spending it on, and why were those individual or that individual firm was chosen, and why other people weren't sought out that they could do a better job, right? Maybe cheaper, and again, limit the information up in the backup material where there's no dollar amount. I like the idea. Don't get me wrong, I like the idea. I like the hell out the idea because I think that it needs to be more opportunity for housing. But I don't like the idea when you tell me we're going on a date, you know what I mean? And then we end up in Ruth Chris and I'm paying for a $200 steak. You know what I'm saying? I kind of want to know some expectations of what I'm dealing with here. And next thing you know, we're at the mall, you in the Louis Vuitton store. You know what I'm saying? I thought we were just coming to get, you know what I'm saying, some Michael Kors or something. That's maybe a little bit here. I'm talking a little bit of how we do it in the hood and how we spend money on our women's and different things like that. They like those type of designer things. But nonetheless, Mayor, I think you understand my point. Like, we kind of want to know what our money is being spent on, if that makes sense. Sure. Right? Anybody would, any responsible person would, right? I think there's a fiduciary responsibility that goes with that. So again, not to be redundant and speak over what Ms. Bowden already said, maybe Mr. Rosenstock has done that, and maybe we just need to hear from him, and maybe what he says may satisfy our concerns. So I yield my 5 seconds and let Mr. Rosenstock have it if he so chooses.
Mr. Warren, I know that I had these same concerns, spoke with Mr. Rosenthal and Mr. Martin to allay these concerns, so if one of you guys would like to
Yes.
speak to what you told me.
I would, Mayor. First of all, there's no numbers because there are no numbers yet. What we've gotten tonight is the ability to go and negotiate with them. We're no doubt gonna come back with some kind of a resolution when we have an actual number to ask you for money. There's no numbers because we're not asking for money. We're asking for the ability to go and negotiate with the attorney. I would like to see an overall understanding of the total amount too, but that's gonna be part of the negotiation with Clay and myself, with the attorney. Also, this is a specialty outfit. We're trying to form a housing authority. When's the last time you heard a housing authority being formed? That's right, it's been a very, very long time. So this is a firm that specializes in that, housing authority formation, housing authority problems, and things you can do to avoid those problems. So that's why we want to go with a firm with experience rather than paying untold amounts of money for somebody that really wasn't experienced in this area. This guy's a specialist. Also, we have the support of First Federal Bank for the housing authority already. We're also probably going to be getting some kind of bonding issues with the housing authority once it's fully stood up. And we're doing this to help alleviate the housing problem in the city that I faced myself when I came here, not being able to find adequate housing for a considerable amount of time. And we think we can do this in a way where it actually brings down the overall cost of housing as a whole over time.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Right, any further discussion on the dais, or would anybody like to move forward with the motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Hold on. Go ahead.
I'd ask for it to be removed because, Lake City does not have a housing authority. I thought it would be nice if, Mr. Rosenthal kind of dove in just a little bit with his previous experience, telling us and telling everyone the value he sees in us having a housing authority, what it does, what it doesn't do, what it costs, et cetera. Just kind of a little bit of a breakdown, like I said, for our benefit, but also for everyone else's. Everyone else doesn't meet with the judge on a regular basis. So that's why I asked for it to be off, if that's possible.
Thank you, Mr. Farmer. Mr. Jernigan.
Yes, I also talked to Mr. Rosenthal about this, and he explained to me about there was no cost. And First Federal Bank was gonna help us out with this, and that was one of my first questions. Anytime you talk to a firm, especially a legal firm, there's a cost involved. And when he told me there was no cost, I was like, of course, yeah, he's the city manager here, and he knows, he deals with dollars and cents. So I applaud him for going out, reaching to this firm, and hopefully we can move forward with this to help you and help us, the city of Lake City.
Mayor, if I may, I need to kind of address that.
Please.
So I said there's no initial cost.
Right.
Anytime you deal with an attorney's firm, there's gonna be cost, but we don't have any initial cost up front. And Clay and I are gonna be talking to come with I too would like to see a figure where he won't be able to go above at these numbers. So, Clay?
I was just gonna, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
I would suggest maybe viewing this like an engineering contract with a task order to come back. That certainly could be the direction that we could take on this, is come back with a task order or maybe a series of task orders and ask the firm to break this down into some bitefuls that we can take at a time. And so if that's the route the council wants to go, that's certainly what Mr. Rosenthal and I can do. As to how we landed on this firm, Mr. Rosenthal tasked me with examining what would go into setting up a housing authority. I looked around the state to see if I could find a housing authority that had been organized recently, so I could reach out to their legal counsel and get some guidance and advice. I don't believe a housing authority has been set up in the state of Florida in the last 50 years. And so that person doesn't exist. Or multiple people of that ilk do not exist. But to everyone I talked to when I was making those inquiries, they all pointed to Saxon Gilmore and said they are the firm in the state of Florida that knows about housing authorities. And so that is how we landed there. I did not get another suggestion. I didn't get to see them or them. Either one can help you to a T. It was always pointing back at Saxon Gilmore. So.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. I would, to add on to that, it would be my preference to see deliverables as well as a budget and to know exactly how that's gonna work and to the benefit of the taxpayer, but not
We can certainly do that, Mayor.
Mr. Carter.
One more thing, I meant to mention this a moment ago, so, Mr. Rosenthal explained that what this is actually approving is the entering into some negotiations and things like that to determine the cost of things. And I could be wrong, obviously, I'm still pretty new on the council, but if I could just say, a resolution with the city of Lake City, Florida, approving that certain agreements between the city and Saxon Gilmore for legal services and furtherance of establishing a housing authority doesn't sound in any way like we're letting you go and negotiate. Maybe a bit clearer language on these sort of things. I feel like this has come up before where it doesn't really sound like what it is. And sometimes when we meet, we get a good idea of what it is. But if the citizen's reading this, I don't think a citizen on earth is gonna read that and go, oh, okay, they're gonna go negotiate and get a price. So I might would like to see some verbiage a little different for that in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. All right. Any further discussion, or would somebody like to make a motion to adopt City Council Resolution number 2025-023?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution 2025-023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt number 2025-023. Ms. Sykes, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Carter?
Yay.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Ms. Young? Ms. Harris? Mayor Walker?
Yes. Mr. Martin, do we,
If we take a break.
we'll take a 5-minute recess. Call this meeting back to order. We've moved through what were our consent agenda items, so now we're down to number 9, resolutions. So we're at City Council Resolution number 2025-009. Mr. Martin, will you read that by title?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. You have before you resolution number 2025-009. A resolution of the City of Lake City, Florida, establishing support for a teaching garden, making findings of fact in support thereof, identifying a site to be made available for a privately managed teaching garden, directing the city manager to solicit proposals from interested charitable nonprofit organizations to privately utilize such site for a garden for educational purposes, directing the city manager to include reasonable and prudent guidelines for respondents to said solicitation, repealing all prior resolutions in conflict and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Barton. We'll open up public comment. Mr. Bowden, you're signed up for this one?
Mr. Mayor, I signed up only to say that I actually support the resolution, that the city moving that direction, that there's something that's going on in Gainesville, in other cities, we see community gardens happening all over the place, you know. And I go back to the presentation that Mr. Cole made about the property intersection of Texas and Martin Luther King. That property was purchased by the city some years ago with the purpose, with the intent of putting a police substation there. The end result is that property no longer on the tax roll. You know, so we bought the property, we be in the city like none of you have anything to do with it. It's off the tax roll, it's a vacant piece of property that's sitting there. So if it can't be used for a community garden, perhaps the city may entertain the idea of selling the property, put it back on the tax roll, because I can't see where the city gonna do anything with it unless you're gonna put a police substation there, and I doubt that's gonna happen. So we spent $30,000-$40,000 to acquire the property, it's been acquired for years. A person comes and says, listen, I wanna just use the property for a community garden, and get shot down, you know. But it's just property sitting there, off the tax roll. There's no benefit to the people of this city, for the city to own that property if the city is not going to use it. That goes for any surplus property. We buy the property, take it off the tax roll, and those of us who pay our on tax, we paying more taxes, and we could be getting some money from that particular piece of property. I said all that, just say I support this idea. It's a wonderful idea, whether Mr. Cole or somebody else. I think it's something that's taking place all over this country. If we want to be a city that's moving forward, and we should allow people who want to have these community gardens, and get young people involved. The fact of the matter, Mr. Mayor, given the cost of food, I went over to KC and I called their name because I shop there all the time looking for eggs. The man told me having the eggs because like you went to shop with the box of eggs this morning, and he couldn't buy the eggs himself for less than $8 a dozen, which means he's gonna charge me $10 a dozen. You know, that's eggs. So if we can raise chicken, grow corn, grow anything else, we need to be able to do that. And if we got property within the city where people willing to do it, we should allow them to do it if it's not a problem. Particularly if it's gonna have an impact on our young people. And we shouldn't pour water on a fire when you got people who want to do things in our communities. I appreciate the city manager moving forward in this direction. I know he needs some directions. You need some direction, the county needs some direction. So I hope that it's not gonna be a resistance to moving forward with this idea.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden. I'll go ahead and close public comment. Do we have any comments from council? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adopt City Council Resolution number 2025-009.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution 2025-009.
Motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Sykes, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Carter?
Yeah.
Ms. Harris? Ms. Young? Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mayor Walker?
Yes. All right, moving on to number 10. Mr. Martin, will you read that by title?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council members, you have before you resolution number 2025-014. Resolution of the City of Lake City, Florida, approving that certain amendment to section 14.06 of the City of Lake City Personnel Manual concerning outstanding employees of the year for the City of Lake City, making certain findings of fact in support of the city, approving said amendment, said policy, directing the city manager to implement the amended policy adopted hereby, repealing all prior resolutions in conflict and providing an effective date.
Mark? We don't have any public comment for this, so council have any questions?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution 2024-014.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve City Council Resolution number 2025-014. Do we have any other discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Sykes, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Carter?
Yay.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Ms. Young? Ms. Harris? Mayor Walker?
Yes. All right, moving on to number 11. And that's City Council Resolution number 2025-015. Mr. Martin, will you please read that by title?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, you have before you resolution number 2025-015. Resolution of the City of Lake City, Florida, approving those certain amendments to the pay grade matrix for the City of Lake City Personnel Program, making certain findings of fact in support thereof, directing the city manager to implement into the city pay grade matrix the amended pay grades adopted hereby, repealing all prior resolutions in conflict and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. We don't have any public comment on this one, so do we have any comments from the dais, any questions? Mr. Rosenthal, I would ask you, could you just give us a public description of it?
Sure. Back in October, we gave some raises out and they threw our matrix out of whack. This is just correcting that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Gary, yes.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution 2025-1-015.
We have a motion and a second to adopt City Council Resolution number 2025-015. And a second, do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Sykes, will you please call the roll?
Mayor, may I just point out that we did amend the agenda late this afternoon, just to include, one that was inadvertently omitted. So the wastewater chief operator was added to the list, probably about 5 o'clock this afternoon, I just wanted to point it out. So we did correct that error.
Thank you, Ms. Sykes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Young? Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mayor Walker?
Yes. All right. Moving on to item number 12, City Council Resolution number 2025-024. Mr. Martin, will you read that one by title?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. You have before you resolution number 2025-024, resolution of the City of Lake City, Florida, appointing Mary Ann McCallum to serve in seat 3G on the city's Planning and Zoning Board, Board of Adjustment, and Historic Preservation Agency Board through October 31st, 2028, the end of the current term for said seat, making certain findings of fact in support thereof, recognizing the expiration of said term on October 31st, 2028, directing the city clerk to reflect said appointment and expiration of term in such records of the city as are necessary and prudent, making certain findings of fact in support of the city clerk reflecting such appointment and expiration of term in the records of the city, repealing all prior resolutions in conflict and providing an effective date.
Excellent. We don't have any public comment for this one either, so do we have any comments on the board?
Mr. Mayor, I'll just say I served on that board sitting next to Mr. McCollum for about 2 years on all 3 of those boards. And she's a terrific servant to her community and a great idea to keep there.
I'll make a comment. I believe this is the first time, Mr. Young, that we've had a full planning and zoning board. Is that correct?
In quite a while.
Quite a while, which means that none of those meetings should be canceled or moved anymore, which is really nice for the purpose. So, good deal. Any further discussion before, or would somebody like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution 2025-024.
We have a motion. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Sykes, please call the roll.
Mr. Carter?
Yay.
Ms. Harris? Yes. Ms. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Mayor Walker?
Yes. Moving on to number 13.
Mr. Mayor,
Please read that by title, sorry.
it's okay. Resolution number 2025-025 is before the council. Resolution of the City of Lake City, Florida, amending the City of Lake City Personnel Manual, exempting certain employees of the city from the classification system established by same, clarifying the exemption of the charter officers of the city from certain provisions of the Personnel Manual, making certain findings of fact in support thereof, directing the city manager to implement the amendments adopted hereby, repealing all prior resolutions in conflict and providing an effective date.
All right, we don't have any public comments for this, so we'll move on to questions, comments by the council. Now, would anybody like to make a motion to adopt City Council Resolution number 2025-025?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to approve City Council Resolution number 2025-025.
Second.
Both. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Sykes, will you please call
Carter,
Yay.
Ms. Young, Ms. Harris, Mayor Walters.
Yes. Right, on to number 14. For informational purposes only, I will turn this over to you, Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. As I think you're aware, both from communications within City Hall and encounters with the media, the city is presently in conflict with the hospital authority concerning a land use matter. I don't want to go into too much depth and detail here in a meeting. I will offer that if you have questions for me after my comments tonight, that you'll reach out to me individually. I'll be glad to address those individually, just simply because this is a matter that is the subject of an active dispute. It hasn't matured yet to an actual lawsuit, and that's something we hope to avoid. But because we are in active discussions and in a statutory mediation process right now, I would hesitate to comment beyond the comments I'm going to give. As you recall, the city raised the issue, a land use issue concerning the hospital back in the fall, and directed a letter to Mr. Dale Williams, I believe, the executive director for that board, concerning that matter. Following that time, the hospital authority directed information back to the city that disputed what the city maintained in its letter concerning the ability of the authority to use the land where the hospital is located for a mental health hospital. The city researched the matter and after internal discussions directed a letter back to the hospital taking the action that they requested, which was simply to rescind our letter. We made no comment regarding the legalities of that, notwithstanding that the city did respond in the manner that the hospital authority requested. They sent a subsequent letter challenging, I take that back, they in a meeting challenged whether the city had gone far enough in rescinding its letter, and they by resolution implemented or started the process of a statutory mediation process that is designed for government entities to mediate with each other. That's where we are right now. That mediation is currently scheduled for the afternoon of March the 12th, I believe. I have not. So we received the information to schedule it for March 12th. We confirmed that with Mr. Kennon's office today. He is the board counsel for the hospital authority. I have not gotten a response back, but I have no reason to believe that if they invited us to use that date, we said we could use that date. I think that's going to wind up being the date, and it'll be in the afternoon. Unless something changes, it'll be in this room. It is the first step in the mediation where it's a conflict resolution analysis, I think is what the statute calls it. And it's just an opportunity for the executive leadership, the legal advisor, and the board chair, in our case the mayor, to come together from each of the two boards and just discuss the matter and see if there is a pathway to resolve it prior to one of the parties suing the other. So that is where that is at, and we expect those to be fruitful conversations.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. There's no action items on that. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Martin? Great. Yep.
So I do have one question from Mr. Martin. I guess you got this letter and you got a conflict. Well, somebody is suing somebody or could be sued. Who's doing the suing? Is it the city, or is it the county? Is it the hospital authority? Is it, who's suing? Or possibly sued, getting sued. You understand what I mean? So, are we going after to sue them, or are they coming out to sue us? I don't understand. Maybe y'all, Mr. Martin?
So, as far as I'm aware, there's been no discussion amongst council members with me or Mr. Rosenthal about the city directing any sort of lawsuit toward the hospital authority or the council. I'm sorry, or the county commission. Because the hospital authority initiated this mediation process, and because the state statutes mandate this process as a precursor to bringing a lawsuit. If I were gonna say anybody was looking to sue anyone else, I would say that the hospital authority is at least contemplating some sort of legal action against the city.
God, you.
Sure.
I just, so they're contemplating on, the hospital authority is contemplating on suing the city. Am I correct? Just answer yes or no, because you get me confused when you go to talking about all that other stuff. I'm lost.
Yes,
I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yes, Mr. Rosenthal.
Clay is.
Yes.
So, I don't think he's saying anybody's contemplating suing anybody. I think we're in a state statute situation where, I have a certain viewpoint, they have a certain viewpoint. We're gonna come together and try to work something out together. And this is a requirement by state statute because we represent two governments.
Oh.
So we're not suing anything at this point. And I think we're gonna, like Clay said, that I think we're gonna work something out that's amenable to all parties concerned.
It's just mediation at this point where we'll sit down at the table and work on the dispute at hand.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Martin? Alright, okay, now we're on to departmental and administrative items. Actually, we don't have any of those, so we're now on to number 15, which is discussion and possible action. I guess that should say not, but, discussion and possible action, consideration to hire administrative assistant for community program director. This was put on by Ms. Billy Jo Bible. Would you like to come up and present?
Okay, so after discussion with our city manager and Terry Phillips, who's the director over this department, the city's grown a lot, as you all are aware, and in the increase of the city's community programs, the community program director, she needs some help. We have a lot, I don't know if you've noticed, but over the last few years, we've had a lot more community events going on, and Ms. Terry does a fabulous job, but she needs some help. She needs help with paperwork, processing, scheduling, and other duties that are involved in that. And so we're coming to you to ask you if you would approve that, to get her some help. Because when she's not there, everybody gets sick every now and then, or needs a vacation, those kinds of things. It's all on her. And so getting her some help is really needed at this time.
And Mayor, if I may, we realize that that's not in the budget, but I have a grant coordinator in my budget. I'm taking that grant coordinator position and split it in half. I'm giving half to Ms. Terry Phillips. I'm gonna try to take the other half at some point and take it to growth management for a part-time code enforcement officer.
Questions for, well, do you guys wanna do public comment before questions, or do you guys wanna ask questions first? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Billy Jo. I will go ahead and open up public comments. And we have Mr. Bowden.
Mr. Mayor, I think the city manager probably answered my concern. You know, the budget was approved in October. I was suspecting we had the same kind of need in October. I don't think that any increase in activity that Ms. Phillips had the same kind of need then. So I'm a little disappointed that it wasn't raised then at the point, but he satisfied my real concern that we're not talking about some additional money, so we may not, amend the budget, so I just don't have a comment, but I wanted to say that it's unusual in my involvement in city government that 3 months into the budget process, 4 months into the budget process, there were requests for some help, as if there's been an increase in activity. These activities was known in October. And known, it's not to say anything negative about Ms. Phillips, but it seems to me that she had that same need then, that would have been the time to discuss it, and we could have dealt with it then. So I debate the question whether or not Mr. Rosenthal needed that position in his office when it was budgeted, and I'm just talking from a budgetary point of view now. If I was on the city council, I'd be concerned about whether or not we approved the position that was necessary, and I would also be concerned about whether Ms. Phillips should have made a request for some help then. Well, I agree that she's doing a wonderful job. I mean, I don't come to all the activities, but I did come down last week to the sick week that I didn't understand what it was about. I just brought my little grandson down, 2 years old. And it was a mistake, I must tell you, because when they cranked those cars up, he wanted to take off running. He started crying and everything. I said, that was a mistake. I said, don't take a 2-year-old to no street racing where they're gonna turn those line of cars on, but it don't work out too good. So, but, that was my concern. Mr. Rosenthal answered my concern that it's not gonna increase the budget in a way. The money's already there, so I'm satisfied with that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Other public comment that we have with Mr. Warren?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for recognizing me. And I found a comment, my last meeting until the 2026 election, until we changed leadership up here. I just want to make a few comments. I respect the fact that Mr. Rosenthal did make a comment after the fact. I think that what happened lacked fiduciary responsibility and oversight. I think if there was a real need, it should have been caught prior to the budget. I heard Ms. Bible come up and say that the city has grew and increased. The new census hadn't come out yet. So we have nothing to say. Well, what data are we using to say that the city has grown? I mean, we've annexed a few properties, but how much has the city grown? And how are we gauging that we're having more activities than normal than she's normally had in the last few years? So where's the guide, right? Like people don't mind giving people assistance. People don't mind spending money for help. People want to see, right, it done very transparent and it done very responsible. And when I look at the backup material, it's 2 sentences. You seen the backup material? Did you read that? Because I always read all the agenda. I like to read I read like 3 books a week. So it's just fun for me to read. So in the backup material, it's like 2 sentences. More events need help. I'm like, okay, based on what? And so I just don't understand. I don't understand. I guess because it's not your money to a certain extent, right? And some of y'all are not large taxpayers, and y'all don't spend as much money in communities as other people do, that y'all don't understand the frustration when people are spending your money, right, without being transparent and lacking fiduciary responsibility in doing so. I find it to be unwise. I find it to be disrespectful, and I very much so, Mayor, find your ethics to be off. Because when I went to college and I took public speaking, and my grandfather being a pastor, one thing you don't do is you don't chew bubble gum and you don't eat candy while you're speaking to the public and you're addressing people, and we can hear you crunching your peppermint or whatever you have in your mouth. That is very inappropriate, especially for you being a mayor representing the great city of Lake City. So I just wanted to bring how you may want to work on your ethics. And that being said, I see y'all in 2026. Have a great day.
You too, Mr. Warren. Thank you. All right. I'll make a couple comments. I think that with the community garden coming up and some other additional events that I know that we have planned, and the potential of starting a small business incubator at some point in the future, I think all these things wrap up perfectly under that department. So those are my thoughts on it. Do anybody else on the board have any thoughts?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Gill.
my thoughts are, and I certainly appreciate Ms. Terry. I tell her, you just gotta open your mouth and say something, close your mouth and get fed. But she does have a lot, and I can actually see growth in the events planning. And if there's anyone who has any experience in event planning, it's not an easy task, and it's very time consuming. But my greatest concern is this: when Miss Terry is not here, and everybody deserves vacation, everybody gets sick, and away from the office, and then there's no one to take over the responsibility. And we need someone to take over the responsibility. God forbid that something happened and she's here no more. Everybody who has an assigned task, they have their own responsibilities to fulfill, and they're full-time responsibilities. So we definitely need her an assistant, Ms. Terry. We need you an assistant. And we also need some cross-training going on around here. Because the assistants and Miss Terry can be out at the same time. And somebody need to be able to put a key in that door and open it and pull that computer up and tell us what's going on. It's very embarrassing to not have someone who is capable of stepping in. And the city goes, regardless of what happened to us, the city still has to move. So I'm in much favor to get her an assistant.
Very good. Mr. Rosenthal, you had some thoughts?
Yeah, if I may, a couple of mentions been mentioned about why Terry didn't ask for some assistance. When I came here in June, so by October I was just 5 months in. So she asked for some assistance first couple of days I was here, but I hadn't seen that need yet. And I have to see that need before I spend the city's money. Additionally, the grant position was needed, but I sacrificed that position because of what she had said in those first few days to see how it went. So that's why we're able to do what we're doing, without touching the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Mr. Carter,
I just want to say, kind of reiterate what everybody else already said. I think what Ms. Phillips does is incredibly important. I think it's very hard to gauge the value, right? It's one of those things it's very hard to work math up on. But the bottom line is we want to be a city that businesses want to do business with. We want to have growth, and it's stuff like our events downtown, stuff like that makes someone who's visiting go, this is a cool town. This town cares about itself. It's got a beating heart. I think for a long time downtown was really struggling in that regard, and there's been a handful of different things, including Ms. Terry's work, that has made it feel very different here. And I grew up as a teenager in downtown. I first wanted to be on the city council because I used to feel like the government didn't care about the downtown. And I was 16, and I remember a government official saying something I thought was very rude to one of the very few business owners that was down there twice, inspired me to want to do this ever or any other project in my community. So it's little things like that. All these events and stuff like that, they build on each other and they build a sense of community spirit that I think is incredibly important, and we have to support it. And what Ms. Young said is absolutely true. If she gets sick in the market with 100 vendors, more than 100 vendors out here, it's about to start. What do we do? It's very few times I've ever heard of a department of one. So obviously, I support that notion, and I appreciate Mr. Rosenthal finding a way to fund it without using the budget.
thank you, Mr. Carter. Mr. Jernigan.
Oh, yes, I'm in favor of it as well, and if I'm not mistaken, a few months back, I said something to somebody about that, and I was like, she's doing just everything. I said, well, who's her backup? And there, nobody, there's, I think Mr. Rosenthal said that she's the backup. She's everything. She's one. At that time, in my mind, I'm thinking she needed some good help. So I'm all in favor of Ms. Terry Phillips getting some assistance there, get some relief. I think the last one I went to downtown here, I think you were part of. I don't think you had made Mary yet. You were part of, and I saw her. I couldn't even. I was like, my God, she's doing all of this by herself, and I want to say it was about the food or something, or cake pie, or I don't know what it was, but anyway, she was running around doing some of everything. I asked one of the workers that was there that worked for the city. I said, are y'all helping her? Are y'all doing anything? And Ms. Terry Phillips stepped up, and she was giving instructions and directions, what she needed, and everybody fell into place, including me. Okay, so I'm all in favor of Ms. Terry Phillips getting an assistance, and I appreciate Mr. Rosenthal finding that money somewhere without using the city's money. So that was a very, very good thing for you. So if we get this approved, I'm gonna stand up and give her applause because I know she needs it. That's not bad.
Thank you, Councilman Jernigan. Okay. So would you like to make a motion? Would somebody like to make a motion on this?
I'd like to make a motion that, Terry get help.
How do we need to structure this? That for a resolution or Clay?
On this item, there is not a resolution before the board. A motion to simply approve the hiring of an administrative assistant for the community program director would be sufficient direction to management.
So Tammy has made the motion to hire an assistant.
A second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I would just say, all of our departments add to the quality of life here in Lake City, in one way or another. This is a very tangible one for visitors and the people who live here. So it's great. It's great. So hearing no further discussion other than that, Ms. Sykes, please call roll.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes. Yes.
Right. Now we'll move on to comments by council members, and we'll start with Vice Mayor Young.
Thank you, Mayor. Good meeting. I would like to mention, as we heard, well, earlier today it started, proclamation for Black History was presented at Florida Gateway College, as we do annually. We're grateful for 2025. And tonight, there was another proclamation for the same. And on February 6th, which is this Thursday, the city and Florida Gateway College, City of Lake City and Florida Gateway College will extend this, can I say reenact the presentation of the proclamation? At Richardson Community Center at 6 o'clock. And there will be 3 presentations. We'll be honoring former Commissioner Ron Williams, and for 43 plus years, I believe it is. And also Dr. Rodney Brown, first African American student then it was Lake City Junior College. And also Miss Robinson, first African American to enlist in the military. I'm gonna say military, I think it's Army. And she's from Columbia County. So it's gonna be a great event. We'll have student band from Columbia High School, jazz band. Y'all come, don't miss it. Food will be served, so come and bring your families and join in with us on this great occasion.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Young. Councilman Jernigan.
Oh, okay. I only got 2 things. I'm gonna try to make it as brief as possible. You said please do this now? The first thing is, I would like for people to pray for the Peterson's family. That's the young girl who got struck and killed 90 East. To say a prayer for that family. It's a sad situation altogether. The next thing I would like to say is the MLK parade. It got canceled, some days back, and I want to know, is it going to be rescheduled? Because that's something that's important to all of us. And I got the message a couple of days before it was canceled. So I want to get the message out to get it rescheduled sometime. And if I'm talking out of turn, I just don't know when it is. So I like to know when it's going to be rescheduled, if it's going to be rescheduled. Don't everybody talk at the same time.
It is not going to be rescheduled. The leadership council puts that on, and they called me and they are not rescheduling it this year.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jernigan. Councilman Carter.
Yes, I have two things. One, I was curious, it has been a little while. I was wondering if we could get an update, if not now, like at the next meeting, on the situation with Sally Nigerian land stuff. I was just been a while. I understand some of these things can just take forever, but it's just been a little while since we heard about it. And then I have one thing to say. Obviously, we've heard about this over and over again. It's come up all the time. At this point, it feels like it's talked about so much more than it is important. But these tables appeared. This is the council's chamber. This is the mayor's meeting. These tables appeared without any vote or approval from us. No, they just were there one day. They would come in one day, there they are. So I think, for me personally, I've made it clear previous times, I don't see any point in it, and I think it's a bad look. But if they're going to stay, I believe they should stay by action of the council. Therefore, I think the council needs to say, I make a motion to, and it needs to be seconded, it needs to be voted. And either we decide as a group that they're there, or we decide that they're not there. But I'd like to not have anyone in the meetings when we talk about it. So that's my opinion on that. I'm not gonna make the motion for them to be there.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Councilwoman Harris.
Oh,
sorry, yep. Hold on. Mr. Martin had a thought on that, yes, sir.
I can give a real quick response if the councilman would like to the question about Cemetery Park. It was delayed a couple of times through the fall because the professionals we were waiting on got tripped up by the same hurricanes everybody else did. We were waiting on some appraisals and some surveys and that kind of thing. But the initial letters to the property owners of title went out toward the end of December. When those letters are received by those individuals, it starts a 30-day clock. I'm guessing, just based on what I've experienced with some other mail that got sent at the end of December, and this is certified, which makes it take even a little bit longer, it probably was not received by those property owners until probably early January. So we're right at the end of the initial 30-day period for those owners to agree to accept an offer from the city based on the appraised value of their property. If they do that, then we enter into a purchase agreement and we buy the property for that amount. If they did not agree to that, then the next step would be proceeding toward a takings through the court where there would be a judicial proceeding to vest title in the city, and the city and the property owner would litigate over the value of the property. But we're right at the end of that initial 30-day period where they can accept our offer if they choose to.
Thank you, Councilman Carter, Mr. Martin, Councilwoman Harris.
Is the park open?
I would. I would have to defer to Mr. Rosenthal and his team as to whether it's open or not.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman, what was that?
Is Savagery Park locked? The gate on it, is it locked or is it open?
The gate is not locked.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is the park open?
The DJ said the gate wasn't locked.
Mr. Brown's coming down.
The gate is open on the front of it, but the bathrooms are locked. So there's no parking, there's nowhere for you to get out without parking on the opposite side of the road, which is private property. So the bathrooms have remained locked, and there's one piece of fence that got knocked down during the storm when we were having a debate on the tree removal. But as far as the gate actually being locked, the citizens that are walking down the sidewalk that choose to go in there can't go in there.
So I didn't hear you say why the bathrooms are locked.
The bathrooms were never unlocked because the park wasn't officially opened. We just never locked the gates. So whenever they originally built the park, with nowhere for anybody to park to keep from attracting that attention is what I was under the assumption it was, the bathrooms were never unlocked.
But I believe if they have access to the park, they should have access to the back restrooms.
We can unlock it, that's just the way it's been for the last 3 years now.
What's the next step on that? That is to acquire that property, is that right, Mr. Martin, for parking?
So there are two lots, and I'll have to confess, I'm not sure geographically which lot is used for what purpose, but there are two lots that are the subject of the eminent domain matter. And the city will either acquire them by contract if the owners agree to sell them to us. If they do not agree to sell them to us, then there will be a taking and for a public purpose for a park. And the city will compensate the owners on the back end once a court determines what the value of the property is.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Councilwoman Harris.
So at the end of that, we're gonna get the doors for the bathroom open, right, Steve?
We can, yes, There are other parks, the Kiwanis Park, or a couple more parks in town, or the park on the west side of town, so it would be the only one without a bathroom, but we're not opposed to locking or unlocking it. It's just the way it was, because it was never officially opened, from what I understood. It was built, but there are some pedestrian traffic through that area where they'll stop and swing for a few minutes. It's just not it was just never open, from what I was told.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Do we need to give direction to unlock it?
If
I-
the park is gonna be.
I'm thinking the
open,
instruction
it needs
is
to be
unlocked.
open.
Okay, yeah, we'll unlock it.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you, Councilman Harris, anything further? All right, I had a couple of things. If you don't know, now you know, Lake City, Florida has its own app where you can download it to your phone. This helps you to receive notifications, access information, view latest updates about the city, so receive notifications about some of what Ms. Terry's doing around town, when those farmers markets are going on, also an emergency situation, so if there is a hurricane or storm coming through, you can find some crucial information. If you're streaming this right now, I was told that there's a QR code that you can hit and download it on your phone. There are these pamphlets in the back of the room for all those in here that you can download it off the QR code as well. Pretty nifty. I look forward to expanded use on that. Yes, sir.
Also the App Store.
It's also in the App Store, yeah. So you can find it. It's in Android and Apple, so it's powered by GoGo. So that's a great thing. I look forward to some more interactive features in the future. Also, there's Shred Day coming up. I don't know if you guys know this. This is Saturday, March 8th. So this is all your confidential information that you don't want laying around the house anymore. But between now and then, we have a couple of other events. We have the Health 360 event, which is going to be on February 22nd at 9 a.m. This is also a partnership with Florida Gateway College. It's going to be a great thing. It's a free community event put on by the City of Lake City and Florida Gateway College. There's going to be raffles, health checks, yoga sessions. There's going to be a community walk. And then as Councilwoman Young mentioned, that on Thursday night this week at 6 p.m. at Richardson Community Center, the Black History Spotlight will be happening, and that's also in partnership with Florida Gateway College. All great things, all adding to the quality of life here in Lake City. So Lake City's a great place full of great people. That's all I have to say. If we have nothing else, then I will.
I have one other thing. I see Terry's giving me the evil eye if I don't say this. So, starting on the growers market starts again back this weekend, Saturday, February the 8th from 9 to 2 p.m.
Great.
And
And Sweets, so Sweets in the Streets is gonna be February 8th, so if you have a sweet tooth, then you can get out in the streets this week. There's gonna be a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of homegrown sweets there, so get out and eat some of those, but other than that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. To adjourn.
Second.